Good morning, Ash. Welcome to my podcast, One for the Road. At last, we've got to meet each other. We've been messaging for a while now, and your lovely
Yep.
sister, she reached out to me right at the beginning of my favourite word, journey, and told me how proud she was of you, and you've got to follow Ash, and he's amazing, and I did, and you are amazing, mate. And we've been chatting since, haven't we, on voice notes and that, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
said
yeah.
it'd be a really good idea to get you on and tell your story. So thanks for joining me, mate. How are you today?
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Like I mentioned, I'm 2 days into a fast, so it's the first time for me fasting, but I really wanted to test my body and see um how well I can do it, denying what my body wants.
How you feeling on that one then?
Weak, weak. Yeah. It's hard work, but I enjoy a challenge, man. I've always been the sort of person not to shy away from one. So
Yeah, well, you know, why not dive in head first of all of it? Because you're
yeah, I
giving up the
mean,
facts as well, aren't you?
exactly. Yeah, I have. I have given up the cigarettes as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a weird one though, mate. I didn't really expect. Even my missus as well. She noticed when I didn't mention anything. So I didn't want to say, oh, I've quit and then go back to it. So for 3 days, I just wasn't smoking. This was after I got like prayed over in a conference about smoking. And then she just wanted, she was obviously doing the same thing because she didn't want to put any pressure on me. So she was trying to be quiet about it as well. And then after 3 days, she was like, I've noticed you haven't been smoking. I was like, yeah, I think I'm done. And then out of nowhere, I just didn't want them anymore. I didn't, um, no, I've had no withdrawal symptoms even. I'm a singer, as you know, so I was a bit worried about how my voice would react. And when I've quit before, or I've tried to quit before anyway. My singing voice has been awful for weeks. I've been
Mm.
coughing. I've been full of mucus, but this time around I've had none of that, and my voice has actually got better straight away.
Well, I'm not surprised, mate. It's
So,
filth, isn't it? Anyway, mate, as you know, we always go right back to the beginning, and you're a North London boy.
yes,
So
mate.
let's start with you as a little Ashley growing up in Enfield. What was that like?
Um, it was up and down. It was up and down. I grew up in a very white Cockney area. So I was always trying to fit in. I didn't really know doing everything that I could to fit in. And also my parents, bless them, like they did everything that they could and they moved over here to London to give us a better life, which we definitely would have had compared to what we would have had back home. But um they were figuring stuff out at the same time me and my sister were. It was like we were all learning, we were all childlike when we were growing up and I had to figure stuff out on my own. Um I love the people I grew up around, and I'm still in contact with a load of people from school. Um, it's made me who I am, but it definitely was challenging, and I find it challenging going back as well.
Do you?
Yeah,
So you
definitely.
grew up in the 90s, right?
95, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
1 year old, younger than my boy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Different times. I mean, I grew up in the sort of when I was growing up, I was born in the 60s, but what my memories are the 70s, 80s, and like jazz funk. I was a soul boy growing up, right? So all my
yeah.
mates at school were like punks and skinheads and all that. And I was a bit of a soul boy. So I was pushed out a little bit, being like a bit of a nerd because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know, and I was a DJ at 15, 16 as well. And my first disco name was Disco Junction. Then it was Cloud Nine.
Cloud
And
nine.
we used to gig around, and it was all like the late 70s, early 80s soul music. Great era of music.
Where'd you get the Cloud Nine name from,
I
mate?
don't know, mate, but I went on in the carpet trade, and that was a well-known carpet underlay. So there's serendipity in there. So I don't know. It's like when you listen to music like that you love, you're on cloud nine. And even now, I spend like, well, I've just come back from Thailand. I had a
Yeah.
12, 13-hour flight, and I had my headphones on throughout the whole thing, listening to music.
Wow.
I just love music. It really lifts my spirit, you know.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, yeah, it's so good for the soul. But
It is.
so anyway, I've moved over a little bit there. So growing up, you found challenging. Was that school, like just culture?
Yeah, it's culture, but school was really difficult, mate. I'm diagnosed now, but I was undiagnosed ADHD at the time, and I didn't really know what it was. But I would always, um, everyone loved me. I was very popular in school, even with the teachers, but I could never perform when it came to exams, and I couldn't understand why. And I always get told that predicted grades were always really high, but I'd come out with C's and D's. Um, and I couldn't understand the language of school. I couldn't understand um the the box or the angle that it tries to put you in. I always thought outside of it. I didn't understand why.
Mm,
So already being an outcast because I thought differently, but not understanding why I thought differently made it even worse. Do you know what I mean? It made me really hate being in school, and I'd do everything that I could to get out. And by the end of it, I was in sixth form. So what, 16, 17, and I'd been introduced to drugs at the time, but by the end of it, I was, raving, going to day raves on a Wednesday, and coming in high. And I remember my sixth form head came up to me at our prom, and he was like, this was after many warnings, but came up to me and was like, I need to take a picture of you to prove that you actually went to this school.
oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just didn't turn up. I didn't fancy it. So I found it challenging, but
Yeah. And how were your parents dealing with that? Did they know, or was it all on the sly?
it was well, they don't know the extent of it at all now,
But
but
they
they
will now.
yeah, they do now. Actually, still, I don't think they will now after this is out. But um, I don't. They didn't know the extent of how many days I wasn't turning up because I would just, smooth the teachers. They didn't know that I was going into school high. They knew that I wasn't performing, obviously, because I can't hide my grades. But they at the time, I think my mum was studying in Montreal, so she couldn't really do anything and wasn't really engaged. And my dad was working. He weren't in London. He was working, um, which where he still does now. He works in Lincoln, but so he would do like 4 or 5 days up there and then come back on the weekends.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of it, mate. To be honest, I was at home alone, and I,
Yeah.
you know,
Probably encourage you a little bit if that was the case, right?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a
So
free house. All my mates would come over during school lessons, and we'd party and then go into school for the last that sort of thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So when you say drugs, was booze part of that as well?
Yeah, booze was part of that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
How old were you when you started drinking?
12.
12.
Yeah.
And what was that like? How did that start?
I actually think I can't remember if I had a drink first or if I smoked weed first. One of the two. They both came in the same year, but um, I started drinking because of football. I think I got the first time I got pissed was on a football tour, and we all all my mates were able to drink around that age. Like their parents would give them stuff. Like I said, cockneys, but um, we were all on a football tour, and all my mates stole over vodka from their parents' caravans, and we sat on the beach. And I think we were in Clacton, sat on the beach, and we all just got off our nut, and I loved it.
Yeah,
Fair enough by the end of it, but
yeah,
the feeling like I could finally be myself around these boys who were always so judgmental, and if you weren't cockney, you didn't really fit in, and if you didn't dress a certain way, you didn't fit in. If you didn't love to fight, then you weren't fitting in. Do you know what I mean? It was the first time I felt accepted by them all.
yeah.
Um, and then it wasn't like I was on the booze every day after that, but it was a slow burner. But I definitely from
Started it off, didn't it? Like,
oh,
do you know, the more people I talk to, including myself from a complete different era, you get to a certain age and you're not really sure who you are. Your body changes, doesn't it, as well? 11, 12 and that. And
yeah,
it's always to fit in.
always to fit in, yeah,
Yeah.
always,
And, like whatever your situation, your environment or whatever, it's like, right, I need to be part of that to fit in.
yeah.
Yeah. So 16, 17 then.
16, 17, I was fully. immersed, 15, 16 really. I was fully immersed in the rave scene in London. And I used to go to this day party, 2 day parties back to back on a Saturday and Sunday on Brick Lane. They were different parties, but in the same venue. Um, and I just got mixed up in the wrong crowd. I don't really know how, to be honest, but I met these group of lads. I'm trying to think how this happened. Do you know what? My mate James at school, he was also a bit of an outcast. Me and him were like this. And he I think he ended up joining a gang because he was getting bullied. And through that, he found the rave scene and then came to me and was like, Ash, check this out, basically. So I did. And I met these group of boys who I thought were the coolest people on earth. And they're all about 30. I look back now and I'm like, they're all 30 and they're partying with a 15-year-old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and I thought they were the coolest people on earth. They all like had the newest Supreme jumpers and the newest Supreme hats, and they all sold drugs. And whenever we go to raves, people come to them and be like, "Oh, what's happening?" Do you know what I mean? They were popular in that scene, and they brought me in, and they thought I was the coolest kid on earth. So again, I felt accepted, and that's when I started getting into pills and cocaine and ketamine and MD and all of that.
So you didn't muck about then. You went
Oh,
straight.
mate, I
Not a
just
lot.
didn't mess around at all. Nah. Yeah, I'm 0 or 100, me, Dave.
Yeah, yeah. So what, with all that going on, what was your life like? Like I know you had all that, but it's the come downs and the reality of life, isn't it? When
Yeah. I didn't really know what was happening, to be honest, because obviously, I'd have a come down and I'd feel a bit down. But I was at an age where I was still playing football at a high level as well, and I was still playing music for fun. And I've got ADHD, like I said, so I spike off dopamine. I'm up and down anyway, so I didn't really know.
right, so it's familiar in a way.
Yeah, so I didn't really know what was going on until way later. But yeah, and you know what it's like at first. It's fun. You don't really notice it doing any damage.
No, I know, and that's the thing in it. Like when I think back to my days,
Mm.
um, you just get on with it the next day, didn't you? I remember I was really ill,
Mm.
and I said to my dad, "I'm going to bed." But my mate said, "There's this wicked club in town in London. I'm
Mm.
going to pick you up," and it was like an all night thing. You got VIP pass, right?
Yeah,
So my old man's thinking, "Oh, I'm laying in bed ill." I've basically climbed out the window
yeah.
and gone to this club and got home at 6 in the morning
Wow.
and went. I was only 16, 17 or whatever it was, and I went straight to work. I had a shower and went straight to work, and
Yeah,
I
they're
did have
all
a
through.
stinking cold as well, like all night. And
Wow.
now, if I go to bed past 10 o'clock, I'm crying my eyes out. Do you know
Hey,
what I mean?
awful, isn't it? I know. You're a different machine, man.
Well, as youth as well, isn't it? And we're experimenting, but like I don't know how we did it, but we did. So
Yeah.
at that point, was there any part of your life that you thought was like dodgy, or was you just embracing it all and living it all up and loving it?
At first, I was just loving it, to be honest. It started to get a bit dodgy around 17, 18, but at first I was just loving every second of it. It was and also like at the time, me and my obviously because I wasn't doing the right things at home, me and my parents were distant. So I found a family in,
Right.
in that, and I
Yeah.
like my ride or die. So I would have done anything from that age.
Yeah. Yeah. So how
Uh,
long did all that go on for? Like the wild era?
Till about 7 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The partying without any consequences or any accountability probably went on until my early 20s,
Right.
15 till like 24. Um, and with throughout that was came depression and came suicide attempts, which I'm happy to go into. And at 24, I think that was after my last like encounter with near death or suicide. That was when I was like, right, something's really wrong. I need to start. Even though I carried on, I was like, I need to start looking at myself.
Right. So was that through depression and that, and you just felt like you can't go on? Like,
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I didn't. I felt, I feel like if you hammer that life long enough, you just feel empty, and like life isn't good enough anymore, and you don't see the beauty in life, and you don't see the beauty in people, even when um they may not be the best people to be around. There's beauty in everything if you look hard enough. And I feel like drugs, alcohol, the lifestyle really numb that.
well, it takes you to the dark side, mate. Like I remember my ex-wife used to say to me, "You're the most negative person I've ever met," right? And I used to get really offended by that, but now I realise I was,
Mm,
because I used to look at life always half empty, but
mm,
be like the little tiny things in life I used to moan about and complain and look at the negative in everything. And I'm the opposite now. And it's not like, oh, great, oh my God, life is, because it's real, like life is real, right? But I naturally see the good in everything now, and it's not fake, it's not false. It's just my lifestyle has made me that way because I'm so grateful
that's good,
for
mate.
where I am in life now. So big shout out to my ex-wife. I'm sorry, I was the most negative person in the whole world. And I imagine I was bloody difficult to live with. But that's what happens, right? And I will issue a trigger warning for this episode. Now we're talking about this, but there was a time that I felt the same, and I went home and I went through all the drawers trying to find some tablets, and I couldn't find
Mm,
anything. Like it was like the universe had said, no, we're not going to give you them now. I just couldn't find them, and I
yeah,
passed out on the floor in my coat and
wow.
woke out, and then I was like, what was I doing? Like Jesus, this could have been a completely different outcome if I had. And I realized then it's like this drug is evil. Like it just wants to kill you.
Mm. Wow, mate. I've had similar. I've had something intervene as well. Um, all three times,
Yeah.
and that's been.
Well, you lost yourself, mate. And this is the thing with drugs and alcohol. It makes you lose yourself, and you're not your true authentic self, are you?
No,
And
it's all.
we'll go into that later where you are on your road
Yeah.
to recovery in that. But so after this happened, like you you realized things had to change then when you had these suicidal ideologies, right? So did you do anything about it, or did you just carry on trying to do your best?
Um, I I want to say, yeah, I did. Well, basically, if we before the last attempt, I was in a band. So at the time, and this was when at the peak of it in my early 20s. And I got to a point where I couldn't perform anymore. I couldn't go on stage because of how anxious I was and because of all the self-doubt and guilt. I didn't feel worthy carrying that band. I was the front man. I didn't feel worthy, holding that title. And luckily, I had a good team around me, and I went to my manager and I told him, and he was like, cool, I'm going to get you straight into therapy. So he paid for private therapy to help me get back on stage, which I did. So I did like 6 to 8 weeks, and she was able to get my confidence back up. I was able to perform again, but obviously within that um that period of time, a lot of things came up from my childhood, and a lot of things came up surrounding addiction, and I took some space away from therapy, but then started exploring different therapists around age 24. Um, so I was doing, and I also got I've had two ADHD diagnoses, and I got my first one around that time as well. So I was doing things to change, but I wasn't like taking it seriously.
Mm.
I was still, I think at the time I would have said to myself that I was controlling it better, but really I was just doing things that gave me answers, but doing the same stuff, you know?
Yeah, well, I can identify to that. I mean, I saw my therapist for years and didn't mention about my drink problem. And
Ah,
to be honest, mate, he was an addiction specialist as well, and he would have really helped me
right.
with it. But there was part of me that didn't want him to help me with it because I weren't ready to stop.
Yeah,
So I wanted to dig down and find out what the hell was going on with me, but I wasn't ready to stop.
yeah.
So it was almost like dipping my toe in the water.
Mm,
What I used to do was have an hour or 50 minutes with him, get in the car, drive back in silence, just so I
mm,
could reflect. But when I go home, I go and get drunk and then forget all about it. And the next day, I'm like, oh, what did he say? Because I
yeah,
was like, it was a waste of time. But once I stopped, that's when the real work began. And I learned so much about, we talk about emotional trauma, right? Big T, little t. Like, it's trauma to
yeah,
me. Like not having your emotional needs met as a kid is trauma because it affects your confidence. It's like your attachment style and that. And it's like we don't have to put the big T's on top of it. It's like it affects you. And when you're trying to fit in, it's to do with self doubt, lack of
yeah.
self worth, and all that. And then trouble is because like you've been diagnosed as ADHD, like a lot of us addicts have been,
Mhm.
we there's a dopamine deficiency, right? And what do you get with your first drink? A huge dopamine hit,
Dopamine.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right. But the thing is there, like with that huge dopamine hit, we want one, we want 10.
exactly.
And
Can't.
that's the problem, right? So I know it's a lot more layered than that, but that's where it all begins. And it's like all your mates might be having 2, 3 drinks and being all right. And we're like on our eighth one going, where's the fucking next one?
Exactly.
So it is all about exploring it. So you was in your 20s. Just briefly, like, so what got you into the music then? Because you're a musician. So like when did that all begin?
I 17, I started a band. Well, it was always football or music for me. I always pictured myself going far with both. And I played at a high level with football from age 9 till 17. And I remember at 17, I also started a band randomly, like with some guy I met in school.
Called Cloud Nine, yeah?
Called Cloud Nine, exactly. um, but the guy from school ended up leaving. But I really got on with the boys, so I stayed in the band, and we spent this the same as so I let go of football and decided to take music very seriously the same summer. And during the summer, we had this shed turned into a studio in the garden of our drummer's gaff. I ended up moving in there that summer as well. Um, and so we had this shed in Tottenham, and it was all soundproof. So we spent 12 hours a day, 3 days a week, just rehearsing.
Mm.
And so just because we wanted to be the best band in the world, just because we loved it and we were good at writing music together. I remember getting a call from my mum. I think I popped a load of pills in my mate um, in Westminster Uni. Woke up on his sofa and I got a call from my mum. She was like, do you remember Tim Zobbo? I was like, yeah, this is a guy that I used to do one-on-one training with when I was playing for Stevenage. Outside of training for Stevenage and playing for them, I did one-on-one training. So I was really, at the time I was trying to, even though I was definitely still living a destructive lifestyle, I still wanted to try and make it pro. Um, and my mum was saying that he gave her a call and that he's got a new job at under 18s, a top six Prem club, and he's asking if he's sniffing around to see if you're around. I was like, yeah. I just popped a load of pills and that before. I was gonna come down. I was like, do you know what? Yeah, go and pass on my number. And there was about a 3 hour gap from my mum called me when Tim called me. And during those 3 hours, I was just like staring at my phone or staring at the floor, contemplating how massive this could be, but also like I'm fully immersed in the party lifestyle. I'm doing music. Like, I'm gonna have to give up the women. I'm gonna have to give up the cigarettes. I'm gonna have to give up. I'm gonna have to spend the next 2 months because pre-season was about to start. So I was like, I'm gonna spend the next 2 months not only getting fit, but being fitter than the academy players that have probably been there since the age of 9. And it's a top 6 Prem club, like
Yeah.
it's no joke. Um, and Tim called me and just he asked me how I was, and we chatted for a bit. We caught up, and he was like, "I just wondered if you're still playing football, mate." And we didn't even get into the job or what he or how long the potential trial was going to be. He's just out of sheer panic. I was like, "Nah, mate, I'm not playing. I'm concentrating on music." And I just, he noticed my sharp tone and was very like, "All right, no worries." And then hung up the call, and I was like, "Well, that's that then. I've put all my eggs in one basket." And also the lifestyle just suits.
Yeah, so basically you sacked off the healthy lifestyle to
Yeah.
carry on.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Just started a band, and we gigged relentlessly for the first 2 years. So like 17 to 19, we were all around the same age as well. We just played loads of shows around London. Um, and we managed to book this tour with supporting a band called Jaws. This is all without any management, no label. Um, and they were doing really well. They're from Birmingham. They're doing really well. They're playing to like 500 to 1,000 cap venues across the UK, 2 week tour. And we hired this mini bus that had, the windows weren't shut properly. It was the middle of Feb, so we had to bring sleeping bags, and we were traveling up to Middlesbrough in these sleeping bags. It was a proper toilet tour, and it was a real taste of like what it was like to back then. The gigs
Yeah.
aren't, doing music isn't really like that anymore, but it was amazing and we loved it. And after that, we were like, yeah, man, let's, it was just all the shows were pretty much sold out. So we were like, this is what life could be. And we,
Nice.
that, and eventually got signed to one of the biggest managers in the world, I think in the same year. And he just opened up a load of doors for us, really.
Amazing, mate. So the thing is, like as people have listened on this podcast, I've interviewed a few musicians,
Mm.
and with musicians comes that lifestyle as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And
I
so, what
mean,
was that like for you?
I think it was a bit of a reset, to be honest, mate. I think obviously it took me 20 to a few more years to get to the point where I was like, I need to check myself. But it started to creep in around early 20s. And this is when we were touring the world, and I could get anything that I wanted. People, promoters would come up to me like, what do you want? I'd be like, I want this, this, and this for after the show, and it'll be on.
Yeah, I know.
Um, the women came with it. I felt like was really big bollocks, and I had so much power for such a
Young lad.
yeah. And to be honest with you, mate, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, but it was it was exhilarating at first. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I'm not surprised. I mean, like it is young, isn't it? And you've had a bit of a struggle growing up, and all of a sudden it's the almost like the big time, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Like, I've gone from as a child, like I said, trying to fit in and feeling powerless to
mm,
those same people used to look up as messaging me, being like, "Yo, can I have guest list?" Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Or just giving me free stuff. And I don't really remember much of it, to be honest with you, Dave. But um, yeah, I loved it. I loved it at first. Yeah.
Thing is, like when you really look at it, why wouldn't you?
Hmm.
I try and be real about my thing. Like, it's not all doom and gloom for me. Like, I had 40 years of addiction, and in the end, it got me on my own, and I nearly died. And thank God I've got away from it. But it weren't all bad. Like, there were,
Yeah.
like some of my lads' holidays were fantastic, and we went on things called Beanos, and a lot of people of my generation know what they are. It's like the Only Fools and Horses Jolly Boys Day Out. You go in a coach and you would go down to Southend or something, and you would do a tour of all the pubs and that, and then the coach would bring you back. And great days out, Butlins, Soul Weekenders, that
I love them,
three,
but
yeah, 4 days at Butlins over a bank holiday weekend, and you smashed till, you know, that was in the days that I actually was socializing. But
yeah. Yeah.
then what it did, it got me on my own, and I started becoming a recluse and drinking out the bottle at
Mm.
home in the dark and stuff like that,
Uh,
and that's, but in your 20s and you've just been signed and you're being handed
mm,
whatever you want on a plate,
mm.
your ego's going to be sky high, isn't it? As
Massive.
you say, Billy Big Bollocks,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you're not hardly going to really go, oh, well, actually, I need to reassess the situation here. And
You're not at all, mate. Like, obviously, my parents both came over with $100 to them because back in Zambia they used dollars back then, but they had $100 to them. We came from nothing, and I was able to have a bit of money in my pocket and
yeah.
do whatever I wanted. And that's how it gets, mate. Like you don't become an addict because it's bad. It's
Well,
it,
at the time, as you said earlier, you don't realize, do you? You're not really reading science books and looking at what it does to the brain and that. You're just living that life, and you're almost like in a hypnosis state of going through the motions of it all, aren't you? And then getting up each day and then starting again. But
mm,
at what point was there? Was there a point that you started to think, God, this is getting a bit too much now?
yeah, yeah.
You're going to say 7 months ago, aren't you? Right?
Yeah,
Because that's
I
when
mean that is real. I mean, because I was gonna say so much because that is the point, really, isn't it? But obviously, there were many times before that I just wasn't ready to stop or didn't know how to stop. But yeah, like I said, 24 after my last suicide attempt, I was like, I need to rein this in. Um,
did you
did
get support for that? Like, did you just deal with it on your own, or
I'm a lone wolf, man. I've always done stuff on my own. I try to figure everything out on my own. I've got a lot better at that now, obviously, thanks to my missus. Um, and now I'm sober with my family. I've got, I do turn to them a lot now, but growing up, I always tried to figure stuff out on my own.
well, you had to though, didn't you? By the sounds of it,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And this is where I said earlier about your emotional needs not being met. It's like, if you had no one there to tell how you felt or express your emotions and that, it's you become independent, and that's what happened to me. At 14, it's like I haven't really got anyone here now, so I need to man up a bit and roll my sleeves up.
Yeah.
you know. And it's only in later life that I learned the skill of being able to talk about things and share my emotions. And now I'm the absolute opposite. I probably do it too much, but I don't care. I'm an open book, and I'm happy with that. But
Um,
but for you, like you held that in. So have you spoken about those experiences since then, or is it just you've accepted them?
I have, mate. Yeah, like but it's only been very recent that I will. I'm sure we'll get into this a bit more in a second, but I've going back to church. So I grew up in church as well. I forgot to mention that, and
Yeah,
left. I had my doubts in my early teens and left at 17. Um, but that's I recently gave my testimony in church, and I recently spoke about how, as I said to you, I've had things intervene every time I've tried to kill myself, and I truly believe it was God. Like I've had encounters with God that have very clearly showed me that He's saying it's not my time to go
yeah,
yet.
yeah.
So I shared that at my headline show and went into detail about what actually happened all three times. And after that, I've had people come up to me and say that's really helped them, and that's all that I want to try and do. So I've learned recently through being in church and giving my testimony in church that it's best to share these things. But I'm still learning how to do that, I think.
Yeah, of course, mate. You're still only 30, aren't you? But it's a process, and being open to yourself, I think, you know,
Mm,
that's how I look at it. It's like open the door to your soul and see what's gonna come in,
yeah,
you know.
exactly.
And I imagine in a way that's sort of swayed your music as well, isn't it?
Massively, bro. Yeah, absolutely. My heart's changed.
Mm.
And before, even though I'm definitely like, I've always been quite earnest with my songwriting, and I don't, I've never shied away from talking about depression, suicide, my life, quite openly in interviews and podcasts and in my songwriting. But now my heart's changed. I'm able to talk about those things with hope and with
Mm,
light. Um,
lovely, mate. Lovely. And that's what sobriety can bring as well, because we're not on the dark side. And I mean
yeah.
that, like when I was drinking, my life was so dark. I had so much light around me, but I couldn't see any of it,
Mm,
you know. Um, so okay, signed up by this label, lots of booze and women and drugs and whatnot.
yeah.
And then that went on what into your late 20s?
Into my, yeah, all into my late 20s. And then I started to, I think the first time I tried to get sober was 27. And I remember, but that was, it was because, I mean, bless her for sticking around. We've been on and off for years, and it's only started to work now that I'm sober and now that but we're both in church. But this is when I met my partner, and I can't believe how much she put up with when I look back now. But I got sober at 27 because our relationship wasn't working, not for me. Which obviously led to me falling at the first hurdle, and I tried AA and NA, and to be honest with you, those both of those meetings didn't work for me, and I don't think they would now either. But yeah, it was 27 when I actually actively started to make
Oh,
change.
how long did that go on for? Like how long was you sober for?
Oh, mate. I think the first time I did it was 3 months, and then
Well, that's a good effort.
it was a good effort. But I was miserable.
All right. So you
Uh,
day counting and just being a
yeah,
victim.
I was miserable, mate. I hated every second of it. And then I started drinking again, and then like a month later, I tried again and told everyone it was like 3 months, but I think I drank after the first 2 weeks and just started to hide it. And then did similar stints over the next 3 years, really, like popping in and out of it, and then lying about when I had, and not really knowing myself when I'd stopped and started,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was your career doing at that point?
Nothing, to be honest. Like so I quit the band. I'd left the band at about 25, I think. So I was 2 years out of the band. I was doing my own stuff, but I was also songwriting for other people and for film and TV. I signed a publishing deal, and I wanted to step away from being on stage, but also I needed to make some money somehow. So I started writing for other people and for film and TV. So I didn't really need to be that on the ball because I signed a good deal and I got something in very quickly, which allowed me to basically throughout COVID not have to work.
Right.
Um, and I think I was having a bit of an identity crisis as well. I didn't know whether I wanted to be back on stage. I was scared of it, and
But was there a point there that you sort of regretted your decision with the football as well, or
still regret it today.
do you? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, parts of me. I mean, look, I know deep down that it's not the path that was for me, and I don't think with the injuries that I've racked up just along the way, not playing football, and also like learning about myself. I don't think I would have dealt with the
yeah,
regimented routine. I don't think I would have dealt with the authority very well, and I don't think that professional um professional sport in general is something that goes well with my brain. So
yeah,
obviously there's going to be regrets. 'Cause, it
yeah. But there can be acceptance there as well, mate. Like what you've just said is acceptance. Like
yeah.
the truth of it is that you know we can have these romanticizing thoughts of, oh, maybe if I'd have picked that one, it would have been different. But we go on to it a bit later. But of what I've seen, you're an incredible musician, and your career's on the up big time, mate. So
Anyway, yeah, for sure.
we can go into that. So right, late 20s, right now you're 30.
Mm.
You hit a point 7 months ago. What
Mhm.
happened then?
I lost a friend to cancer out of nowhere. Well, to be fair, we'd lost touch by that point, so it wasn't speaking to our friends. It wasn't out of nowhere for the people that are still close to him. But he'd this is the second time he'd had it. He got rid of it and it came back. And but by the time it came back, he was really healthy and he's running marathons. And he um he passed away. And I caught the news and I didn't process it very well. I just sort of brushed it off, maybe because we weren't close. And I was like, you know, it was probably going to happen at some point. The way I did deal with it was by going on a 2 day bender. And within that 2 days, prior and post, I let a lot of people down and during, and I hurt a lot of people that were close to me and people that didn't think that I would hurt. Um, and at the end of it, I came home and I was just sat on the end of my bed and I was bawling my eyes out and I just naturally went into prayer and I just said, I said, Lord, I I need you to help me get sober because I can't do it on my own. Um, Within that moment, I'd prayed over this a lot before, but I wasn't ready to quit, and I'd felt God calling me for a while. I'd felt Him telling me that I was never going to get where I wanted to get within music unless I was sober. I'd felt Him calling me for a long time, but in this moment was the time where I was taking. I don't know. I was just serious about it for the first time, and I could feel that I was really at my end and that I wanted it gone, and I'd never like cried this out. I'd never cried in prayer about it. I'd never like really pleaded for his help. But within that moment, I felt something leave my body, and I didn't want to admit it to myself then or to anyone else. But I knew in that moment I was never going to drink again. I
Yeah.
felt. Um, and then the next weekend, I went to a Christian because my sister's sober as well. She's 16 years, I think, and hers was vodka, like yourself, mate. Um, Advice, and she went in when I was 16, but she went up to a Christian rehab and she stayed there. And she's now a leader and a mentor at this amazing Christian charity that changed people's lives, bring people in from addiction and change their lives. And so I went up to the Christian conference that they were hosting, and on the first night, it was a 3 day like retreat. Sounds quite culty when when I say it out loud, but it's a 3 day retreat. And on the first evening, there was a church service on the Friday. And before we went, my sister was like, came up to him and was like, "Can we pray for you at some point tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, please, I need it." Went to church, did the thing, came home, and she's like, "Do you mind?" I wasn't going to say anything. So I was still vulnerable at the time, so I was going to wait for her to approach me for prayers, and I was kind of hoping she wouldn't at all, to be honest, because maybe I didn't want to face up to my problems. But she came up to me afterwards. It was like 10 p.m., 11 o'clock. She's like, "Can we pray for you now?" I was like, "Yeah, go on, then, why not?" And within that prayer, we prayed for about an hour straight. Within that prayer, there was three people: my sister, her husband, and their friend Evan, who's now a really close friend of mine. And Evan prayed over me and was like, "I'm getting a vision of a skyscraper, and I can see that skyscraper is a metaphor for you." And but he was like, "But God's telling me that the thing is with buildings that tall, they need a really strong foundation, and you're not going to get that until you have a strong foundation." And for me, that meant music and sobriety. Um, so within that, he prayed over my sobriety again and again. I felt that lift. It was like I can't really explain it, man. It was like something literally left my body,
Mm.
and that was confirmation that I was never going to drink again. So my prayer was like I knew I wasn't, and then within this prayer that Evan prayed over me, um, it was confirmation that as long as I stay close to God, then it's not going to happen.
And that was what, you're 7 months now.
Yeah.
How has that been for you?
Mate, like really, it still shocks me how I don't want to say easy because it's not been easy, but it has in a way. And like I just said, I feel like if I'm close to God, I will have that protection. If I was to do this on my own, then the old me would rise to the surface very quickly. I'd find it very difficult. But I have felt like I've just had something protecting me from it throughout the whole process. Again, the same with smoking. I've had no withdrawals. Um, I've been able to be in situations. I'm not in those situations anymore just because I don't enjoy it, and also it's just not good for me. But when I first went sober for the first month or so, I was still going to after parties. I was around it. I was still going to raves. Switched it to day raves here and there, but I was still like amongst those people. Um, and I didn't really feel any temptation. It was weird. I didn't like in the moment. I'd never feel tempted. It was I had moments outside of it where like I'd be having a bad day and or like I'd have an argument with someone and someone would be like, "Oh God," something would say, "Go and have a drink." But then as soon as I'd be in the pub or as soon as I'd be around those people, I'd have no desire.
Mm.
And now I'm at a point where like I know how much I have now, even though my life is I would say a lot harder in many ways. I feel so much happier and I have so much more purpose. And what I have now, even though my life is harder, is not worth losing, you know.
When you say your life is harder, what do you mean?
Um, I'm relearning a lot, and a lot has come up for me. I haven't realized, I never realized that I knew I had a temper, but I didn't really know how bad it was. Um, I knew I was an avoidant, but I didn't know how bad it was. Um, and I'm learning how to be real and how to be vulnerable
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
deal,
love that.
thank you. I have to deal with emotions rather than numb them, and I have to talk through them and work through them.
Yeah,
It's hard.
that's the hard part of sobriety, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, when we don't know, we think the hard part is
The boost.
dealing with the cravings and the triggers and the
Yeah.
social anxiety and what to do at Christmas, right? And I've always said it's like learning to drive. You have to learn the first bit, pass your test, which is dealing with all that, and then
Yeah.
up comes all the things you have been avoiding all your life is why you drink, right?
Yeah.
And it's managing yourself and your emotions, and like that can feel really tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I got that from you actually, that way of thinking. But recently I connected with a mate of mine who's also in music, and he had the same crisis that I did a long time ago, and his career, like he stopped drinking for an entire year, and then his career blew off, and then in between that we lost contact for a long time, but I'd heard that he was dipping in and out of it, and we met up recently. We've regained contact since I've gone sober, and we've been chatting a lot, and I think it was this week actually. No, last week, end of last week. I think maybe I can't remember. But he was saying that he's back in AA, and it's the first time that he's doing the 12 steps. And it's the first time that he's actually getting to the source. He's not just cutting
Yeah,
it. He's trying to get to the source.
yeah, yeah. Which
Um,
is irony because that's what I used to call it, going on the sauce.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
Exactly.
mate, you're 7 months now. You've quit the fags 2 months ago,
Yeah,
and your relationship seems like it's the best it's been.
absolutely, mate. Yeah.
And music, talk to me about your music career. Where is that right now? Because you kindly invited me to one of your gigs last week, but I literally just got back from Thailand. But
Bless you. It probably would have been a bit too much for you. But yeah, again, music is also it's taking a different turn. My songwriting's changed in a much better way, and I'm working the hardest I've ever worked. It feels like I've started again, which can be frustrating at times. Like I want the numbers to be how I've had them straight away, obviously, and I want the engagement to be as big as it was, and I want to be on the tours I was on. But it's exciting because I'm able to look at the industry, my industry, which I believe is a very, very dark industry, with um a different lens. And I actually enjoy my job for the first time ever. Um so I'm releasing music again. I've had two singles out this year. I've got three more to come out, which will feed us into the next year, and that'll be the first EP done. Um Hopefully another headline show around April next year as well. But it's early doors and it's exciting, and I get to yeah, start again. I get another shot at it, and it's
Yeah, absolutely. But doing it the right way. I mean, I mentioned to you in our messages that I do a bit with music support, and they help addicts in the music industry. And a good friend of mine, Shara Delican, who was the bass guitarist for the Gorillas.
yeah,
Like he's a role model for sobriety, and this is what you can be. In your songwriting and how you show up in life is,
yeah,
so encouraging for others because it is an industry rife with that lifestyle, isn't it?
mm,
I have people come to me for help and they're not like super like well-known professional musicians, but they're on the scene.
yeah,
And as soon as they get there in the afternoon, the first thing is like, what do you want? Like it's all on the house and you know, 9, 10 o'clock at night, sloshed, going on set, and it's just
crazy, mate,
it's how it is. Do you know what I
crazy.
mean?
My girlfriend recently she's been so supportive of my music throughout. But she recently described the two different performers that she's seen in me, and before she said I've always been a good performer. It's my biggest selling point. But she was like, before it was great and it was big, but it was messy. Which is like, whereas now it's big and it's energetic, but
Mm.
it's refined. And I didn't notice the difference until I saw someone play live recently, and he was he's 26, I think, and he reminds me of me when I was a bit younger as well in terms of the energy. But before the show, I think I saw him do two bottles of wine. And I was like, mate, obviously, I'd been there. But when I watched him, like, it was messy. And I'd never clocked it before. It was amazing. His performance was great, but like,
Yeah,
it was messy.
yeah.
Um, and he came to my show last week and was like, I'm taking a leaf out of your book, by the way. And
Oh, sweet.
I was like, mate, I said, I can, before I stopped him, I was like, I can see that you're so much better. Like,
Yeah,
straight
yeah,
his face and his eyes and the way that he was holding himself, it wasn't messy. It was like,
yeah,
you can see.
yeah. Refined. And like, and this is definitely going to come out in your writing, your performance. And part of the reason I wanted to get you on, one, you're a lovely bloke. Two, you're 30, and I like to get young people on to.
I don't feel young though, mate. I've got tendonitis in my Achilles. I can't speak.
It's all the football, isn't it?
Yeah,
But but you're young, and you're a real example, and also you. I wouldn't say you're new at sobriety, but 7 months in,
yeah,
you're at that stage where you're beginning to understand about emotional sobriety. And I was saying to you before we started this that I don't want to just get on people that have been 10 years sober or they're a celebrity in the media. And I want to get real people on that can tell their story and authentically, when you're 7 months in and you are a real inspiration, mate. And I watch your reels and your music and I love it.
you legend. Thank you,
Um, and I'll definitely come and see you one day.
please.
I will do. And I just think you're amazing, mate. And I'm proud of you and for what you've overcome as well with all that. And you're moving forward and your lovely partner is
Mm.
so supportive and your sis who reached out to me. You've got to follow this dude. He's
Yeah.
amazing. Right. And I think I reached out to you that day and said, "Hi, mate, it's Dave." And
Yeah, I really appreciate it, mate, because you've helped me along my journey as well. So,
yeah, I appreciate it, mate. So well done, mate. And let's keep checking in. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us all as well, and all the very best, mate.
Thank you, brother. You're a legend.
All
Take care.
right.